The brand mentions part of the dashboard, I love it because it makes outreach more efficient, but you can also just do it from a personal level to see who's talking about your brand. But again, you can reverse engineer it so you can see who's mentioning your competition. So again, there's ways that you can be quite sneaky about that sort of stuff and get the data that you'd otherwise really struggle for if you're trying to do this manually. So let's look at it from a personal level. Why would you, as a business owner with a website, even be bothered about brand mentions in the first place? So brand mentions give you an outreach opportunity, and it just means that you can directly request a link from the person mentioning your site or your brand, unless it's a large site that just outright refuses to link to anybody. You're probably likely going to have quite a bit of success with this approach, because it takes very little effort from the publisher, and if they mentioned you, they're probably much more likely to give you a link than otherwise, just some massive publication who don't care. So for an example with the brand mention section, I've set up my agency, Dispense Digital, so tracking brand mentions there. And actually straight away within it, the tool found a brand mention from a site that published my dissertation. This isn't exactly recommended reading, it's all about local SEO, but if you want to read about local SEO, there you go. So it's flagged the brand mention as Dispense Digital that doesn't have a link, and then we go into the site, we can see that yes, they do mention Dispense Digital. So now, because that's a profile, like it was a standard profile page, I can just go within that and try to get a link if that's part of the feature, or if not, just speak to the publisher about that, about getting a link added. But that's just a really quick way of showing you just how easy it is to do. And then your brand mentions are also tracked across forums and even Instagram. So it's like, you're monitoring brand mentions against active social profiles, then also within forums as well, which is brilliant because you're probably not going to want to sit there and troll through thousands of forum pages. But some of these forums are years and years old, they have a fair bit of trust and authority in them, so it's certainly something to consider. So we'll just throw this out there for the backlink audit section. Again, it's the same with the tech audit or any other aspect of auditing your site. You don't just want to be sticking to one tool. You want to approach this the same way you do with an audit, that this is a good starting place, but it isn't the end in terms of your overall analysis. But that's not to say that there's a fair bit that you can actually get out of this section in terms of just the data that you're given. And I also fully appreciate how expensive link auditing software can be, with dedicated tools. So using something like this and then doing manual audits within SEMrush, and if you've got something like a Hrefs or Moz, cross-reference the data, it's probably still cheaper than a link auditing standalone tool. So yeah, let's jump into this section and just see what you can get out of it. So what are you presented with? So you've got the anchor types. So to my point on how beginners might even unknowingly stuff keywords into their content, they're also pretty likely to do the same when it comes to their anchor text. So what the anchor types section does, it breaks down just how blatant and natural your anchor text spread is looking, which is an absolutely brilliant way of getting across to beginners just how diversified your anchor text ratio needs to be, especially whether it's internal or external links. So for example, with my site, you can see how I've opted for mostly branded anchor text, so that's either in the format of a name anchor or a naked URL. The money anchors, they're obviously important, but too many money anchors based on the number of referring domains that you get in, it's just too many red flags. So obviously it's few and far between with the money anchors, and just trying to keep things as natural as possible. And I mean, look at it this way, so who's naturally going to link to you in excess using your money keywords such as best plumber in London? No one's going to be doing that unless you're paying for it. So just a bit of advice on that is to keep your anchor text ratios as natural and diverse as possible, and diversify to your money keywords or your non-branded keywords when you deem it safe to do so, and when the ratio of branded to non-branded permits, really. So with your top anchors, this is another really nice quick way to summarize your anchor text ratio from a visual perspective. I don't mind showing this publicly either, because if you can find all this data from the tool anyway. So as mentioned above, I stick to branded anchor text where possible to keep things natural. And this is also a great way of finding out if you've been hit by any negative SEO attacks or just unsavory anchor text, because you'll see the bar chart go off the charts with unsavory phrases. And then your link attributes is just a nice way of showing the ratio of your links in terms of follow versus no follow. Again, you want that to be as diversified and natural as possible. So let's jump to the audit section. So within the section, you can quickly see a list of all the incoming links that the tool has picked up, and then you can categorize them into either a keep or delete list. So for the purpose of this review, and probably the most common purpose when auditing, I'm focusing on the disavow option, as you'll obviously be wanting to create a disavow file to upload through Search Console to get rid of those toxic links. So each link scored a toxic score out of 100, with 0 being not at all toxic and 100 being ultra danger mode, system of a down level toxicity. So I urge you to do your checks on this in terms of the fact that the final decision to disavow comes down to you, and you only as the site owner will know just how dangerous or spammy a link will be. So these types of tools, they have to err on the side of caution. So where something might be very, very slightly spammy, they might flag it in the red, or you can see where I'm going with it in terms of they have to be ultra cautious, because customers could easily come to them and go, well, you said this wasn't spammy, and it was, and I've been hit with a manual penalty. So you can see why they'd be very careful with it. But obviously, if you know something isn't spammy and it's saying that it is, the decision ultimately rests on you on what to do with it. So the remove option, that's actually another brilliant one, but one you might not really need to worry about unless you want the link to be removed quicker than the disavow file might take. So obviously the disavow file doesn't remove the link, it doesn't remove it in terms of the webmaster getting rid of it. Obviously it's just telling Google that you don't want those links attributed to your site. But this remove option, it adds a domain to the remove list, which will then add it to a file. SEMrush will then source the contact details for the site owner, then you can directly request the removal. I mean, how good's that? So like, if it is mega spammy, it's just from a blogger that you can get in touch with, you can just do it that way, and it saves you having to do that process manually. You can still put it in the disavow file either way. So you can also leave a comment on each domain as you go through the list. So for example, if you're working together as a team, you can leave notes for your team member, so they can double check the toxicity of a given site, and just they can confirm whether they think it's spammy or not spammy or whatever. So with the disavow list section, so you can actually just export your disavow domains to a text file. So this is obviously the format that the disavow file needs to be submitted to in the first place. So I mean, just a quick point on disavowing. So it's been said that it's unnecessary unless you're absolutely certain of a spammy domain. But if you've never done a link audit before, I think it's best to do one every couple of months or so anyway, especially if you have a large site. It's not worth risking just for the sake of, say, a few hours of not doing one. It's something that I would always do anyway, just to stay on top of things. So the pros for this section, the complete diversity of actions during the auditing process, like being able to whitelist domains, disavowing, or just flagging a domain for removal. It's absolutely brilliant, and it just means that, especially when you collaborate with someone, then you can see each other's process as you go through it. And the disavow file export is really handy because you don't have to format a file. It's just literally there ready for you to upload it. And then just one quick one on the cons. So like I said, the toxicity rating is a little bit off, and that's just me being picky. Like I said, these tools are never going to be 100%, so just use your common sense along with the initial ratings. So 9 times out of 10 they are correct, but just make sure that you do manual checks on top of it. So the link building section, this appears to be a combination of competition data and then just general sites for outreach based on the types of links that your competition have. So it's been kind of covered in different parts of the platform anyway. But it's just, again, it's a very logical approach to kind of start with link building really. So I mean, just think of it this way: if there's a site linking to one or two of your competition, then they're probably much more likely to link to you as well. And they're probably the kind of site that you want a link from, because they deem your competition to be relevant for them to link to. So you know, vice versa for yourself. So let's have a look at the section, see what you can get out of it. So let's start with the domain prospects bit and break that down. So we've got the keywords section. So with this bit we can see the types of URLs that competition are getting links from, and then also what anchors are being used. So for example, I filtered the section to freelance, and then I can skim through the results to see the types of competition URLs with freelancing, and then those pages from competition that are actually getting links through, and then the way that they're diversifying their anchor text and that sort of stuff. So we can go further into each competition site to see the links, both in that specific URL by keyword and then also the wider domain as well, so we can jump in and then go back to do a top level analysis as well. Again, really nice feature, and it just means you can really get to grips with the data. The competitors bit, so again this makes the process easier, not only for outlining relevant competition but also to see the types of content that competition are writing about that they're then actively getting links from, and it also shows you the type of URL that the page is, along with the domain rating for that individual page, just so you can kind of get a sense of what you're up against. And then within the further analysis bit, so this kind of gives you the option to monitor brand mentions, which, you know, is a feature again of another part of the dashboard, but it's just a really logical way to follow up on outreach campaigns. You can track which sites might have mentioned you or your client, and then you can also directly approach them for a link. You can also manually upload domains for monitoring, which I think is nice if you know on a certain day that you've outreached to a couple hundred sites and SEMrush hasn't picked up on that yet, then you can just do that manually. So I mean, what I like about this section is that it goes beyond what I was expecting really, for a link building tool built into kind of one of these all-in-one marketing suites. I mean, in all honesty, and with my frame of reference from other tools, I was just kind of expecting something that kind of printed out my competition and the links they've got, and this goes above and beyond in terms of like the level of insights and the integration into other parts of the dashboard as well. So I mean, link building is always one of those more manual and time-consuming processes, especially, you know, for anyone actively looking to grow their organic visibility. So if you're attempting to do it at scale, then using something like this is only going to help you out. The pros for this section: it makes the process of outreach much simpler and means that you can keep track of your competitor link acquisition, and you can again mimic or reverse engineer their strategies as you see fit. So outreach is often a numbers game, so using a tool like this, you can kind of just shortcut that process, and then also you can kind of cross-reference your findings in terms of the type of content and links that your competition are writing about or getting in, so you can see what the types of bigger posts you need to be writing about as well. So the section also provides inspiration for content in terms of like the bigger pieces and the wider analysis of your competition, so you can broadly speaking see what you need to be writing about in terms of how they're getting links through. So I mean, in terms of cons, again, it's not really anything, it's just my thoughts. I think it'd be nice to kind of integrate this section with a tool like hunter.io or Pitchbox, just in terms of getting contact data really.